Uh, Hi class, this is Andrew Wright, and this is my review of a multiple moderated regression from Journal of Addictive Behaviors 2004 by Giesner et al. The relationship among alcohol use, gender problems, and symptoms of psychological distress, with gender as a moderator in a college sample. So there are some research questions that they had. Firstly, what is the prevalence of psychological distress symptoms among a large random sample of college students? And to what degree are the symptoms related to alcohol use and alcohol-related negative consequences? And are there any gender-specific relationships among these issues? So, why did they do the research? They, cited previous studies that said that 90% of college students drink, up to 50 are considered heavy or binge, and that the students who do abuse alcohol are at risk for negative consequences. They said, surprisingly, that there are high levels of stress among student population, so I don't know if anyone besides me has a raised eyebrow about that. It's a bit of humor here before we get into the meat of psychological distress and alcohol abuse. So, in case you can't read it, she's saying, well, the good news, he got a 3.0. The bad news is it's his blood alcohol content. And then there's two guys in an office. What, you don't have a college degree? Where did you do all your drinking? So, what do these jokes have in common? So, apart from humor about alcohol abuse, interestingly, they both have males as the center of attention, and if you think about it, it's just not as likely to have that kind of a joke about female alcohol abuse. And that does reflect some societal understanding about possibly there are differences between heavy drinking between men and women. So the variables selected, the independent variable was alcohol consumption in drinks per week, and the moderating variable was gender, and the dependent variable was psychological symptoms. So basically we have a ordinal and dichotomous and continuous set of variables there. So why choose the variables? Well, they basically noted that in the past there have been gender differences in drinking patterns, but hasn't been studied that much in college age students, and that preliminary research had suggested that there may be a relationship between drinking and mood that is stronger for men than women. So what they expected to find men drank more than women. And they expected to find that women had more symptoms of psychological stress than women. I pulled that straight out of the article, and to me it was a little badly worded. What they're talking about is that women are more likely to report problems when they do have them. And then they also expected to find that symptoms of psychological stress would be positively correlated to both alcohol use and problems from alcohol. So why do moderated regression? So they wanted to know whether gender would moderate the relationships, the relationship of alcohol use and problems and psychopathology, and they so a moderator is a variable that affects the relationship between two other variables, independent and dependent, and the kind of data that they were generating was appropriate for regression. So the sample, 3 West Coast universities, really quite substantial sample size, 1,705, about twice as many women as men, and so they completed web assessment, and that was sort of a question mark I had, the web assessment or paper assessment for this study. I'll talk about that a little bit later. the implications of that. And then also, they really did not, for this study, use other data like ethnicity or age. Be interesting to see how that affected things. For their services in this study, the students, it took about 45 minutes. They received 2 movie tickets and were entered in a drawing for $2,100 or one $500 gift voucher, which is just what a binge drinker needs. Okay. So, out of curiosity, I looked up, there is actually research on party schools, and they have them ranked across the US, and 2 of the top 20 from the West Coast, UC Santa Barbara and Chico State, where I remember there was some fraternity hazing deaths a few years ago. And so, any ideas where University of Idaho may rank? Number 74. Number 1, of course, Florida State. Okay, so the data collection, there were 3 instruments. The first was the daily drinking questionnaire, where the responders filled in 7 boxes, 1 for each day of the week, with alcohol consumption on that day averaged over the past 3 months. So, I'm not sure how reliable that would be, but that's what they did. And then they have what they call the Rutgers Alcohol Problem Index. So there's 23 items related to the impact of alcohol on social and health functioning. Again, they were asked to do that over the past 3 months. And then there's a brief symptom inventory. It's 53 items with all these kind of subscales for different kinds of problems like depression, anxiety, and so on. And it relates in what they call a GSI score, which is a global severity index. I'm not psych major, or particularly, and so there may be some people in this room that could explain that better than me. But that's a score that from insignificant to significant in levels of severity, and that's what they use for the psychopathology end. And so the results. So first up, so alcohol consumption. Pretty simple tests. Basically, they said males average 6 drinks a week, females about 3.5. And I'll touch on that a little bit more in the discussion portion. And massive power. Oops, typo. See the F score there of 44 with a significance of less than 0.0001. And same for psychological stress. Those under stress consume more alcohol. And again, massive, not quite as high, but massive. Again, the 0.0001. And then to talk about that a little more, the multivariate results were significant for both gender, again, really low here, and GSI scores, huge. And then gender by GSI was also significant. And so what does this mean? And they have these couple of figures here. Just a comment on them first. So, technically, it seemed to me that for the study, the GSI is the dependent variable. They have that along the x-axis, and then they have either the number of drinks per week or the alcohol problems index on the y. You could switch it around, and you could sort of interpret it both ways as well. Like, does having a lot of psychopathology make you want to drink more, or does drinking more cause more psychological stress? It's kind of a complex question to me, and but anyway, so to talk about it, as they have it graphed here. So another point. So men is the triangle, women is the circle, the dotted circle. You can see that much higher scores there for men than women, and to me really quite significantly so, both in the terms of standard drinks per week and in terms of the alcohol problems index, and also the gradient, the R here, for men is much steeper than for women. So you can see that much less drinking occurring for women, and even at higher levels of psychopathology, stress, much less than when men are in that situation. There's a lot of drinks happening, and this is the average, the mean here. I don't know what the range was even. And so then the way I would interpret this one is that at 0 levels of alcohol problems, there's really not a lot of global severity index going on here, and that men and women are essentially identical. And then as the amount of alcohol problems go up, the amount of let's call it psychological stress goes up accordingly, or you could say it the other way around, but that the relationship is clearly much stronger for men. Okay. So discussion. So basically, not only did men drink more than women, but they were more likely to do so when under stress, and this drinking was more likely to lead to further problems. So not good. Those in psychological stress reported more alcohol-related problems, and the relationship between stress and drinking was stronger for men. So that's just going back to those graphs there. So basically, so men were more likely to have problems, but females were more likely to report them. That wasn't in the study, but that was in the graphs there, but that was what they found. So the limitations of the study, overall, I thought it was good. The authors noted that it was cross-sectional as a limitation, and that means it's kind of a slice across. It's not done over time with, there's no repeated measures. It's more of a snapshot. And the results were self-reported. And to me, that was what I noticed straight away with this. Just, like a 45-minute survey. And then people are remembering back several months, and especially for binge drinkers, that's not the best. And apart from that, really doesn't take into account if there are any differences in how men and women report. I think men would be more likely to talk about drinking a lot than women would, perhaps. And there may be differences in how people notice the self-awareness level about levels of stress and amount of drinking, and then differences between those who are binge drinkers and not in what they would report or notice. So that would need to be accounted for, in my opinion. And then the strengths of the study. So that by using sex as a moderator, they were able to make really more subtle distinctions about the behavior, and more powerful both, about the subject's behavior with regards to alcohol and psychological stress. It had really good power, in part due to the large number, but the effect size was massive. It would even not have needed the high sample size to do that. And I personally like they're able to make some specific recommendations around what to look out for with male students, and perhaps they need more attention and more guidance on these issues. And so there you have it. A nice little example of using multiple moderated regression in a research study. And my name is Andrew Wright, and I've enjoyed doing this, and I hope the sound and audio came through okay through the marvels of modern technology. Thanks a lot.